Okay, so we've just recording. We do ask that you do not swear, and that this we do hope that you enjoy today. So I will leave the chat and introduce you to Rebecca Bryant, who is OBE, who is the CEO of Resolve, and I will pass over to her to introduce and to start her presentation. Thank you.
Hello everybody, I'm delighted to be here with Neighbourhood Watch to kick off Antisocial Behaviour Awareness Week. You're my first webinar of the week. I think I'm doing about 35, so by the end of the week I may not have any voice left. So my name is Rebecca Bryant. I am the Chief Executive of Resolve. Resolve are a membership organisation. We are made up of housing providers, local authorities, police forces, police crime commissioners, charities, solicitors, all focused on community safety and antisocial behaviour. I'm also a trustee at Neighbourhood Watch, so I'm sure I've seen some of you before at many events that I've attended in the past. So I wanted to talk about a few different things this morning and then open it up for some questions from you all. So lots has been going on in the world of antisocial behaviour in the last few months. Previously, certainly from our perspective, we felt that it was a bit of a Cinderella of crime, that money funding went to, say, violence or knife crime or drug dealing or cuckooing, but not to antisocial behaviour. Whereas what we actually know is that antisocial behaviour is the most prevalent type of crime and behaviours that will impact on communities. So just a couple of our statistics. We've just had our YouGov survey done, and we've just published our report this morning, and I don't know if Cheryl can put the link in the chat for you all, so you can see what our statistics are saying. So one of the headlines is 1 in 6 people experience antisocial behaviour at least once a week. So that's 13.8% of the population. So based on that, there are 1.7 million people experiencing ASB at least once a day. 1.7 million people. Staggering, isn't it? There are 1 million incidents recorded by the police last year up until the end of December. Now we know that that does not include incidents that are reported to housing providers or local authorities. So imagine the 1 million incidents, add in there the incidents that are reported to housing providers and local authorities. And then our YouGov survey says that half of people, so 49%, almost half, do not report antisocial behaviour when they've either been a victim or a witness of antisocial behaviour. So then imagine doubling that amount of incidents. And by our reckoning, we think there's probably around 5 million incidents of antisocial behaviour a year, which is why it's such a significant problem. It's a significant problem all over the country, in areas of affluence or areas in the countryside. It's not very specific and targeted in that respect. So everybody all across the country can and does suffer antisocial behaviour. Antisocial behaviour has a significant impact on people in the community, and particularly if they're a victim themselves. So 1 in 7 people say that antisocial behaviour has impacted their mental health. And we know that antisocial behaviour can make you feel frightened in your home. Your home is somewhere where you should feel safe. I really firmly believe that you've got a right to feel safe in your home and your community. But sadly, according to our survey, 1 in 4 of us feel unsafe where we live. 1 in 6 of us are considering moving home, and 1 in 10 of us have actually moved home because of antisocial behaviour that's been perpetrated against us. So given that it's such a significant problem, we've been lobbying government for a number of years now on making antisocial behaviour a priority. And I was delighted that on behalf of Resolve, we were invited to a round table in January at number 10. So yes, I have that picture in front of the shiny black door, something that my mum is very proud of and has sent to all of my relatives. But the whole purpose of that round table was for organisations like ourselves to go to speak to the heart of government and tell them what we thought needs to happen around antisocial behaviour. How could we improve our response? How can we make people feel safer? How can we get more organisations like Neighbourhood Watch involved in how we respond? How can we make communities safer and more resilient? So we know more resilient communities with organisations like Neighbourhood Watch are safer. and antisocial behaviour is tolerated less, and it's less likely to happen if you've got an established neighbourhood watch. So thank you very much for all your time that you give up to Neighbourhood Watch and to your communities. You are the unsung heroes here, and I hope that it will be celebrated during one of the days of ASB Awareness Week and on our ASB Heroes Day, because that's exactly who you are. So following on from the roundtable, the government published in March this year the ASB Action Plan with much fanfare. And I have to say that we were really delighted that finally antisocial behaviour seemed to be being treated with the priority that it should be, because our surveys are saying that it is a priority and that it impacts on more people. So the ASB Action Plan impacts on all sorts of different ways in how we're going to respond to antisocial behaviour. So I'm going to give you a bit of a whistle-stop tour of what's in the plan, and link that to how that might impact on you, how you can get involved through Neighbourhood Watch, and then perhaps we could go to a bit of a session where you can talk to me about issues, and I'll do my best to signpost you and also take notes from you, because you know my job this week and all the time is to be the voice for the people in communities who suffer antisocial behaviour, and to keep pushing the government to respond and to put the money where the mouth is. So first of all, a significant amount of funding was announced in the ASB Action Plan. And that funding has been split into various different ways. So there are some hotspot pilots, and the hotspots are going to be looking at two different things. Those pilot areas are run in police and crime commissioners areas, so police force areas. I think there's about 20 across the country. And there are two elements to the pilot. The first is hotspot policing. So we know that 50% of people don't report antisocial behaviour. So when we ask on our survey, what would make you report antisocial behaviour? Over 40% of people have said more visible agencies. So not just the police. And we do know that, tackling antisocial behaviour is a partnership response. So it isn't just the police, it's yourselves in the community, it's housing providers, it's local authorities, it's charities, it's health. It involves lots and lots of different organisations. But the hotspot money is going to police and crime commissioners so that they can have greater visibility in areas where there is the most antisocial behaviour. Now, post-austerity, there was a real significant impact on neighbourhood policing, and I'm sure you will have experienced that where you live. But since the government announced the 20,000 more police officers, there's been a huge refocus on neighbourhood policing. We know that seeing police officers and also more visible agencies not only makes people safer, but it has a very direct impact on reducing crime and antisocial behaviour. If you see a police car, there's lots of research around this, you've got about a 45-minute lag after that police car was there where there's a significant reduction in crime and antisocial behaviour. I mean, jokingly, but sort of semi-seriously, we were talking about, can we not get more cars painted up like police cars and drive them around like Uber taxis, but make them police cars, so that we had that sort of impact to make people feel safer. And obviously we can't do that, but if that's what we need, more visible policing, that's exactly what this funding is going to be spent on. So what they're going to be doing, the police and crime commissioners, is working with the police forces and local organisations like yourselves, Neighbourhood Watch, and housing providers and local authorities to define these areas where there is significant antisocial behaviour, and then they would hotspot and patrol those areas. The hotspot pilot is being very seriously and rigorously reviewed. So there's going to be significant research and polling and asking people if they feel safe. Ooh. I'm really sorry about that. I'm in a Premier Inn and there's a fire alarm. Oh, it stopped. I'm really, really sorry about that. I probably deafened everybody. It stopped. So therefore, I'm assuming it's a test. They didn't tell me there was going to be a test. So I'm really, really sorry about that horrendous noise. Right, so where was I? Yeah, so there's going to be lots of research around the hotspot pilots. Now, I hope that from that pilot, there will be then more funding for it to be rolled out across the country. Because really, that's what the police should be doing anyway, isn't it? They should be responding to hotspots of antisocial behaviour alongside other community safety partners, so local authorities, housing providers. Oh, hang on a second, sorry. Oh, it stopped again. If it happens again, I'll just press mute for a minute. Sorry. Good job that didn't happen when I was on Radio 5 20 minutes ago, isn't it? Okay, so the second part of the pilots is immediate justice. Now, I'm sure many of you will have heard of community payback, and some of you may have been involved as Neighbour Watch. Perhaps they're checking it out on every single floor. Sorry, again. Sorry about that, Cheryl, and all the people on the call. Yes, so I'm sure you'll have heard of community payback. So community payback is where somebody has perpetrated antisocial behaviour or a crime, low-level crime, and they then pay back to the community through reparation. So that could be removing graffiti, it could be weeding, it could be cleaning rubbish out of a canal, and it's to show visibly that the person who's perpetrated is not only showing remorse, but is providing reparation for the impact of what they have done. So some of the pilot areas are going to be piloting immediate justice. And one of the ideas around the immediate justice is it will be 48 hours from disposal of the police that you will see that person in the community. If you are active and involved with your local police force and they are a pilot area for immediate justice, I think it would be really, really good if you as Neighbour Watch organisers could speak to them about community payback, because you will know areas where perhaps there's what's a fly tipping, or there's graffiti, or it's an area where they could invest in their time. So this is free to the community, so it's really, really important that you think about that. Okay, so those are the two sort of really spotlights from the ASB action plan. The next thing I want to talk about is young people. So there is a myth out there that antisocial behaviour is perpetrated by young people. We know that the vast majority of incidents of antisocial behaviour are perpetrated by adults. And sadly, what happens is when there's an announcement about antisocial behaviour, the media put a picture of young people on bikes with their hoods up, and that's antisocial. We know, though, that from our survey, that the highest antisocial behaviour type, and I'm going to do this in inverted commas, is young people causing trouble on the streets. Now, often people say they feel intimidated by groups of young people who are not perpetrating antisocial behaviour. They find them intimidating, particularly around sort of like the local shops and the parks. And some of that, I think, is perpetrated because, or that view is there because of the way that the media talk about antisocial behaviour. However, I think it's also recognised that when we're talking about young people and antisocial behaviour, and you know, often they say it's because they're bored. It's driven because they're bored, because there's nothing to do in their area. And a recent study has said that 49% of young people spend their free time in their bedrooms, so they're at home. And 41% of young people don't have opportunities to make new friends. So we know that, you know, being involved in youth groups, uniformed youth, say like scouts, cubs, cadets, provides not only structure, diversion away from antisocial behaviour, keeps young people active. So we were really pleased to see that the government have announced £11 million for 1 million hours extra youth funded activity across the country. Now, considering what happened after austerity, when a significant amount of youth services were cut, this is building back, but it's better than not having any extra funding. So that's one of the other things that I think is really important that's in the plan. We must remember that, as I said before, more resilient communities are safer. Obviously, Neighbour Watch is a key driver of that. But there's also all sorts of other organisations, you know, where I live, they call themselves the Wombles, and they go and they do litter picking and they plant bulbs. And then we have the Rotary Club, and we have all sorts of different organisations and groups working in communities. One of the positive things that came out of the pandemic was the sort of birth of organic community activism. So I'll give you an example. I'd lived on my street for 11 years. I knew my immediate neighbours who lived round about me, but I didn't know the people who lived at the top of my street. I might just wave when I drove past in my car, but I didn't know who they were. When the pandemic happened, some of our neighbours set up a WhatsApp group for the street. And that was where we could offer support to people who were isolating, go and get shopping for people or prescriptions. And that developed into a really strong friendship group. And people were active in the community. And organisations like Neighbour Watch and Resolve and all of our members really need to build on that, and to try to involve them perhaps more about our messaging. Because one of the statistics, sadly, around our YouGov survey, and this is about communication, we really need to get much better at it. So in the last year, only 5% of those people surveyed had ever noticed any information about antisocial behaviour. Now, I know that all of you are very, very active in your communities. Your whole purpose is to try to reduce crime, reduce antisocial behaviour, to work with other people in your community. So I wonder, when we do the answer session part, if you have any ideas of how we could communicate better with the public around antisocial behaviour, about where to report it, how to report it, what can be done about it. And communicating with people doesn't cost a lot of money. So there must be some way that we can do it better. So we know that early intervention and prevention work, about 75% of cases are resolved first time. And that means that less suffering for members of the community from antisocial behaviour. We know that mediation and restorative justice approaches have a longer lasting impact in resolving antisocial behaviour. So we need to see more of that. But we also know that antisocial behaviour is very, very complex, can often involve mental health drugs and alcohol misuse. And it's very difficult for organisations to deal with the problems of antisocial behaviour when they are a symptom of what that underlying cause is for mental health, drugs and alcohol. And we've been doing a lot of work with the Antisocial Behaviour All-Party Parliamentary Group, which is across bench. So there's a group in Parliament, which has been doing research around antisocial behaviour, and coming up with ideas and recommendations to give to the government to improve how we respond. And one of the things that Resolve are promoting and supporting with the ASB APPG is a pilot around problem-solving courts for housing. So one of the things that was announced in the ASB action plan was speeded up antisocial behaviour processes in the courts. But one of the problems that we have is the courts are overwhelmed at the moment, and there's significant delays in taking legal action when we're talking about the most serious types of antisocial behaviour. So by having a specialist housing court pilot, we can see if we can streamline that and speed that up. Because if you're a victim of antisocial behaviour, in some of our members have reported it taking up to 18 months to get a trial in court. So for 18 months, you are suffering antisocial behaviour, you are feeling unsafe in your home. For the organisations that were supporting you, they're trying to develop more evidence, and it goes on and on and on. So it really seriously impacts on people's feeling of safety in the community. So that's something that's something that we are really passionate about supporting. I think it's really important as well to start thinking about how we can encourage people to report. If half of the people who suffer antisocial behaviour don't report, we as agencies can't respond and we can't do something about it, which then means that actually people feel less safe, they talk to their friends and family. And one of the reasons why people don't report is they think that we won't do anything about it as agencies. So obviously that's why that communication thing is so important. But in the action plan, one of the announcements of the ASB action plan was that they're going to develop a digital one-stop shop so that people can report online antisocial behaviour. So that then they could have someone locally give them a response. Now, I don't know how that's going to work. You know, we've all got smartphones and millions of apps. And on that basis, you can envisage it being something like that. Lots of organisations, certainly housing providers and local authorities, have ASB apps so that people in the community can report antisocial behaviour. I mean, obviously, from our perspective, what we want to do is increase the amount of people reporting so we can do something about it. As I've said, I keep reiterating that point. But about 37% of people from our survey said they'd be more likely to report if it could be reported anonymously. Because people are frightened of standing up, aren't they? People are frightened of being the retaliation that could happen, being seen as a grass. I'm going to do that in inverted commas. I hate that word, but that's how people feel in the community, that they will then be targeted more. So any opportunity to have real anonymous reporting around antisocial behaviour would be a great thing. I think that what that would do would enable agencies to sort of map out what's actually really happening in communities. Because when we talk about hotspots of ASB, it's only a hotspot because people reported it. But if there are lots of people not reporting it, then it could be happening somewhere and we don't know about it. A lot of the work that I've done over the years has been working with community members and victims of antisocial behaviour and supporting organisations to get better at what they do. And one of the key messages that I've always used, if we ask you what the problem is, so you said this was the problem, these 3 things are the big problems in my community. We as a group of organisations go away and do something about it. And then we come back and ask you if you feel safer, you will definitely feel safer. So we used to run campaigns called You Said, We Did. So we've done something about it, publicise when we've taken action, and work with you to disseminate information about how to report, what successes we've had. People are more likely to report it to us if we say, well, actually, you know, Mr. Smith, who lived at number 13 Coronation Street, who was an alcoholic, who was causing significant antisocial behaviour in the community, was threatening people, was abusing people, was exposing himself, for example, he was weeing in doorways, he made people feel frightened and intimidated. If that is a problem and we, the agencies, respond to that and do something about it. So not only deal with the antisocial behaviour by perhaps using an injunction or putting something in place, but then also looking at a positive requirement. So making sure that they access the support that they need. As I said, you know, we know that mental health, drugs and alcohol misuse are significant drivers to antisocial behaviour. So it's almost like a symptom of the original problem, the antisocial behaviour. So that's something that we can do more of. I think one of the key points from the ASB action plan, and it's something that we've been lobbying for a very long time, is the rebranding of the community trigger. When I used to be head of community safety at Manchester City Council many years ago, we piloted the community trigger for the government with the Home Office. And I'll explain a little bit about what it is and how you can use it. But it's actually called in the legislation the ASB case review. Now, from a professional's point of view, if you, for example, said to somebody who was in my position, you've got a serious case review that's just come in, it used to send a chill down my spine, because it's serious and it warrants significant gravity, because there's been a significant issue around safeguarding and someone may have tragically lost their life. Similarly to a domestic homicide review, again sent a chill down my spine, because that meant that somebody had died, being murdered because of domestic abuse. And we agencies who've been involved in that case had to demonstrate to a panel what we'd done and work out how we could have improved to have saved that person's life. However, when the community trigger phrase was coined, that was one of Theresa May's special advisors, and they liked the community trigger because the community were triggering a response. But what that's meant is that actually it's not been really well taken up. Agencies aren't really sure what they're supposed to be doing with it, and certainly the community, 96% of people say that they've not heard of the community trigger or how to enact it. So under lots of lobbying from not just Resolve but many other organisations, the government today, the announcement, well, it's not really because it was in the ASB action plan, but it's a focus of today, is the rebranding and relaunch of the ASB case review. So basically the ASB case review is a way for you as people in the community, and you could do this as a representative for somebody perhaps who's been a victim of antisocial behaviour, to call into question what agencies have done in response to antisocial behaviour that's been complained of. So the threshold is low, it's only 3 incidents in 6 months. Now, in my experience of working in ASB for over 20 years, we have some cases where there's 3 incidents in an hour of antisocial behaviour. And mine 3 in 6 months, so it's a low threshold. And what the ASB case review is there for is for the agencies to come together, review what has been done to tackle the antisocial behaviour that's been complained of, and to think of how they can develop a clear action plan to stop the antisocial behaviour. As a victim of antisocial behaviour, you should have the opportunity to have a voice in that process. And you should be able to put your point of view across about how you've been suffering the antisocial behaviour, what can be done about it, how it's making you feel, and then those agencies need to come back and tell you what they're going to do about the problem. Now, we've been putting a lot of pressure on to ask for police and crime commissioners to be more involved, perhaps have an appeals process. So if you were dissatisfied with the response from your ASB case review, so that would then go to the police and crime commissioner for arbitration. So you're going to see a lot more information about the ASB case review. I hope where you live locally, that communication is coming out from the Police Crime Commissioner, it's coming out from the police force, it's coming out from your housing provider, if you're a social housing tenant, it's coming from local authorities, because this is the kind of thing that we've been talking about here, that actually communicating better about antisocial behaviour, telling people how they can report, telling people what we can do about the problem will make people feel safer, because we will be able to respond better around antisocial behaviour. So that was sort of like a bit of a whistle-stop tour, really. I just wanted to just have a little bit of a focus on this week, particularly in how you can get involved. The more people we get involved, the better. So today is obviously the launch of ASB Awareness Week. So I've just been on Radio 5, we've done loads of press stuff, and we've got our official launch this evening in Parliament, with ministers speaking and police and crime commissioners and the National Police Chief Council and local authority and victims, all sorts of different people talking tonight to really focus on antisocial behaviour. But today is all about knowing your rights. So the ASB case review, as I've just described to you. So that's today. Tomorrow is Victims' Day. So we'll be focusing on the victims of antisocial behaviour and how we can support them, how organisations can work together to make people feel safer, how victims can report antisocial behaviour. So if you're on Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, hopefully you will see lots and lots of people getting involved in Antisocial Behaviour Awareness Week and promoting what can happen. On Wednesday, it's the big ASB conversation. And that's where we're encouraging all organisations and the community to come together to talk about antisocial behaviour, talk about where there's a problem, what the problem is, what can we do together to tackle it, how can we raise awareness of reporting. And I know that Neighbourhood Watch are running a series of workshops and things this week, so I'm sure you'll be being invited to another thing. Is that right, Sherry? Just have to do a thumbs up. Yes, I knew there would be, because they always do. Neighbourhood Watch, a brilliant organisation to work with. So then on Thursday, it's ASB Heroes Day. And what we've tried to do is ask organisations to record themselves out in the community doing something with about antisocial behaviour, whether that be with young people, whether it's about celebrating the fact that your Neighbourhood Watch coordinator has been out and delivered lots of leaflets around antisocial behaviour, because you are the heroes, and that's what's really, really important to me. Agencies cannot do this on their own. We have to work in partnership with the community. You are the biggest stakeholder. And if you are Neighbourhood Watch coordinators, you've got all of the support from the Neighbourhood Watch team behind you to enable that voice to be heard and heard louder. And you've got the Community Safety Charter that Neighbourhood Watch have developed alongside other members of Neighbourhood Watch. If you don't know about it, please go on the website and have a look. It'd be a brilliant thing for you to all sign up to, and to encourage other organisations and businesses in your area to sign up to. And that would be fantastic if we get that really promoted this week. All of you who have already signed up for it, and to really promote why the Community Safety Charter is a good thing. And that's about setting standards around antisocial behaviour. It's about encouraging people to feel safer. So please do have a look at that. Then on Friday, it's Young People's Day. So as I said earlier, you know, there's this urban myth that young people are the perpetrators of antisocial behaviour, when in fact, actually, it's predominantly adults who perpetrate antisocial behaviour. And young people are often stigmatised because they are young people, and they may wear a hoodie, or they may dress more goth-like, or they may have tattoos, or they may congregate in a group. But that doesn't mean that they're being antisocial. And there's loads and loads of activity around sort of positive behaviours. So during the day on Friday, we're going to have a real focus on young people and how they can positively contribute to the community. You'll see lots of activity from youth groups. You're going to see lots of activity from organisations like Premier Kicks. So Premier Kicks are a charitable side of the Premier League, and all of the Premier League clubs have community action football projects in their areas. So you're going to see a lot of activity around how that sort of engagement with sport means less antisocial behaviour, means positive role modelling, means discipline, means fitness, health and well-being, impacting on mental health. So lots and lots of activity around that. Then on Saturday, it's around antisocial behaviour and health. So it sort of runs in parallel, really. First of all, we know that being a victim of antisocial behaviour significantly impacts on people's health and well-being. As I said at the beginning, our YouGov survey says that 1 in 7 people have said that antisocial behaviour impacts on their mental health. So one of the purposes of the day is for us to promote what kind of support is out there for people who are victims of antisocial behaviour, how we can be more engaged with organisations like Neighbourhood Watch and yourselves, so people are more likely to feel less safe if they're isolated in their community. And so if you're a victim of antisocial behaviour and you've got nowhere to turn, so that kind of befriending, supporting, luncheon clubs, WhatsApp groups, getting involved in the community, someone just knocking on the door and having a chat, is a drop-in cup of tea place that you can have a drop-in for, where we can, you know, make people feel that they belong in the community, because isolation is a very significant factor. But then the other sort of, as I said, it was in parallel, the other side of the day is we know that a significant number of cases of antisocial behaviour involve mental health, drugs and alcohol. So what we are suggesting here is that organisations, health organisations, charities should be out there promoting how they can change the behaviour of the people who are perpetrating antisocial behaviour. And we know it's difficult, we know it's hard, but it doesn't mean we can't keep trying. And then the final day, and this is over to you guys to absolutely shine. I can't wait to see all of your Twitter posts and LinkedIn. It's Community Action Day. This is your time when you go out into the community and bang the drum about antisocial behaviour, and talk about how people can get active with Neighbourhood Watch, talk about the Community Safety Charter, encourage people to join Neighbourhood Watch. Because as I've said to you, more resilient communities are safer communities. So the more Neighbourhood Watches we can have, the more people like you that we can encourage to be involved, the safer we're all going to feel. So that's sort of my bit of a pitch really about ASB Awareness Week, about the ASB Action Plan. There's all sorts of things going on around antisocial behaviour, legislation-wise. You'll have just seen there's the Renters Reform Bill, which is about private sector landlords. It's just been entered into Parliament. There's some information there around antisocial behaviour and talking about getting rid of Section 21 eviction notices, no fault evictions. But then obviously private sector landlords, so how we're going to deal with antisocial behaviour. So in the bill, it's suggested that they will speed up the process for landlords to be able to evict people who are antisocial. But as I pointed out before, the courts are absolutely overwhelmed. So one of the things that as I said before, that we are supporting the pilot scheme for a housing court. And I think my last point would be, if you are an active member, we've been lobbying really, really hard to have antisocial behaviour included in the Victims Bill. The Victims Bill is currently going through Parliament at the moment. And on our Resolve website, there is a template for a letter that you can download and you can send to your MP asking for antisocial behaviour to be included in the Victims Bill. Now, at the moment, if you're a victim of crime, you automatically get victim support. And that crime could be anything. So if you had your shed broken into tonight and someone stole 2 spades, you would be offered, through a crime number, victim support automatically. If you're a victim of antisocial behaviour, that is not the case. It's very much a postcode lottery. Some PCCs do fund antisocial behaviour victim support, but in other areas they don't. So some areas use victim support, the actual charity itself, to provide that support to antisocial behaviour, but that's not the case across all of the country. So we've been lobbying for a long time to get antisocial behaviour included, and it's not too late for us to keep trying. So if you can and you feel that you want to support the campaign, if you can download the template, I encourage not just yourselves but all of your Neighbourhood Watch associates who work within the community to fill it in and to send it to your MP. Then maybe, just maybe, we will get some proper funding for victims of antisocial behaviour and supporting them. So that was my little bit of a call to action, Cheryl. Sorry that I sort of like just took that in there. But I think it's really, really important that we recognise that antisocial behaviour is a blight in communities. It really impacts on people's health and well-being, impacts on people's livelihoods. And our job is to try to make people safer. And one of those things is to sign up to that community safety charter.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. You've been wonderful as usual. We've got loads of questions, as you can imagine.
Okay, that's fine. This is seeing so many people on the call. This is great.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's really, really great. And bless you. And yeah, just wanted to go through. There's obviously there's been concern, as you just brought up, around Section 21 being stopped and things, and people are also saying that their experience of reporting ASB to the council, to the police, etc., is really, really bad. Their experience from start to finish. Some feel that nothing ever gets done, and other ones are saying that their difficulty as well is when the property is owned by the perpetrator. And how is that being dealt with? What advice could you give with regards to that?
Okay. I mean, I think there's quite a few different bits there. So let's deal with Section 21 eviction notices. So for those of you who don't know, if you are a private tenant, your landlord at the moment can serve you with a Section 21 notice. That means that they can ask you to leave that property within 2 months. You don't have to have done anything. It's called a no fault notice, no fault eviction. For a long time, organisations who represent private sector rented tenants have been lobbying to get Section 21 removed. It was a manifesto pledge in the Conservative government's manifesto to get rid of it. And so the Renters Reform Bill has just been putting down into Parliament, laid down, and in there it suggests getting rid of Section 21 notices. But instead what they're saying is what they will do if there's antisocial behaviour is that the private landlord will have a speeded up process. So rather than having to wait weeks and weeks and weeks, that could be done in a couple of weeks from serving a notice to getting a court date. Whilst I think that might be laudable, I am really worried about the court system. The court system at the moment, as I've said to you, is significantly overwhelmed. And landlords, private landlords, aren't the same as local authorities and housing providers. They don't have the same resources. So to be able to develop our case, I'm going to do this case, take to court, to evict a private tenant for antisocial behaviour is going to be much harder for them to do. And there's a real sort of, and where are they going to get the information from? You know, as a housing provider or a local authority, I can go to the police and they'll tell me, they'll give me statements to support my action. They're not going to do that necessarily for a private landlord. So there's a real, it's a real conundrum. Now Resolve, along with other agencies, are part of the Department of Levelling Up Housing and Communities, DLUC, ASB Implementation Working Group, that's a snazzy title, there you are. And that's all focused on very much around this concept of removal of Section 21, speeded up process around possession action with where there's antisocial behaviour, how that will impact on the courts, what kind of support landlords need. And obviously it's only just been introduced into Parliament, so there will probably be lots of different amendments as it goes through. But unless there is some significant boost to the civil justice centre, so the county courts where this action will be taken, I imagine it's going to be very, very difficult, which is again why we're supporting the problem solving courts. So that's sort of my response on the Section 21 and private sector stuff. When we're talking about reporting and responses around antisocial behaviour, you know, I've worked in this sector for over 20 years. I'm going to say I was 16 when I started as a YTS. That's actually a lie, but that's what I say so that people don't think I'm as old as I am. We've always worked really, really hard to support people going through antisocial behaviour, to come up with a plan, to take action as necessary, to try to stop the antisocial behaviour. Sadly, satisfaction is not very high, but I think there's lots of different reasons for that. A response to antisocial behaviour is a partnership response. It's not the responsibility of any one agency. And I think, say, for example, if you phone the police about antisocial behaviour, but because they have their responses are based on harm and threat. So their call centre decides that this antisocial behaviour incident isn't a high response time, so it might take the neighbourhood policing officer 2-3 days to come to see you. And I think there should be a much more harm-centred approach to tackling antisocial behaviour. So rather than thinking how serious is this incident, what agencies should be thinking about is what is the impact having of this incident? What harm is it causing? Are there any vulnerabilities to the person who's suffering the antisocial behaviour? So are they isolated? Are they lonely? Have they got medical issues? Has there been use or threats of violence? So to develop a sort of a map of what is not what only is the incident, but also what is the impact and the harm of that incident, and then respond accordingly. Now, a lot of the 20,000 extra police officers that have been recruited have been put into neighbourhood policing. And you will have seen, I really do hope you will have seen this, a reinvigoration of neighbourhood policing. And you as Neighbourhood Watch associates, people who are involved in Neighbourhood Watch, you should be seeing that the most because you're engaged with the police and they should be communicating with you about what they're going to do around antisocial behaviour and crime and burglary, and they should be supporting your campaigns locally. You should know who your PCSO is. There has been talk, hasn't there, in the beating crime plan of having named police officers and telephone numbers, and so there's going to be this direct reporting into neighbourhood policing. I think we can do much better about how we deal with complaints of antisocial behaviour. You know, I know that early intervention works. So really what should happen if you report antisocial behaviour and you're reporting it to a professional who's well trained and they know what tools and powers are available to them, then they should be able to respond straight away. And that response, as I say to you, 75% nationally is resolved first time. So that means it stops it in its tracks, and that's our job, is to stop the antisocial behaviour, isn't it? Sometimes though, sadly, people say they aren't satisfied because the person who's the perpetrator is still living in their house. And we have got a bit of a conflict here because all agencies are signed up to reducing homelessness. We don't want to see more people homeless on the streets. Yes, homeless people can cause antisocial behaviour, i.e. perpetrate it, but they're actually much more likely to be a victim of antisocial behaviour because they've got significant vulnerabilities. They're intimidated, they're threatened. Some people, even wee on people, are asleep in doorways. It's really, really terrible. So I think this, all agencies have signed up to reduce homelessness. But if you are a victim of antisocial behaviour and that perpetrator lives on your road or next door to you or is targeting you to your house, at your house, directly to you, you don't want them to live there. You want them to be evicted. You want them to be moved on. Whereas for an agency, you know, as a resolved member, our job is to stop the antisocial behaviour. That's what we are to do, stop the antisocial behaviour. That does not mean evict people. It means stop the antisocial behaviour. So there's always a real balance to be struck there around managing the expectations of the people who are complaining about antisocial behaviour. But just to reiterate, you know, there will be lots of information coming out this week, and we are going to be continuing the campaign throughout the year around how to report it, who to report it to, what you should expect from that report. And I know Resolve, and I've done lots of work with Neighbourhood Watch about beefing up the website information. So if you go to the Neighbourhood Watch website, that talks about all the different types of antisocial behaviour, what the possible remedies are, who you should report it to, and then ultimately, if you're not happy about the response, then you can act the community trigger or ASB case review, as it is known from today. Okay, Jo? No?
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. Thank you. I know there's somebody who's got their hand up. However, we're just going through the other questions, and then we'll come to you, John, because people put things in the chat. A lot of people are saying that the formal language, you know, you're asking for information, but the formal language of when people are trying to report ASB can sometimes be overwhelming for people. It's quite cumbersome for many to use. It's not using plain English. It's using, it could be much more simplified and make it much more personal to them, because that's what ASB is. It's personal to that victim, isn't it? Also, someone was saying the the hotspot areas. You didn't identify what those hotspot areas were. Are you able to?
Okay, so first of all, off the top of my head, because I haven't got the list in front of me, Northumbria, PCC, Essex, Lancs, pass. Gloucester, I think, not the Met. The Met are not a pilot area. What I can do for those of you on the call, at the end of the call, I'll find it because I have got it, and I will send it to Cheryl, and Cheryl can send it to all of you. I mean, really, what we really want, don't we? Let's be honest, is for every police area to have funding to do hotspot patrolling and immediate justice. But I suppose what we need to do if we're piloting it is to make sure that it works and that you're engaged with it as Neighbour Watch participants. Excuse me, it is really, really important that there's that communication. So often I think what happens is agencies do things to communities. What we need to do is ask you what you want, and then tailor our response. So I think it's really, really vital that you, Neighbour Watch, are involved at a local level to support the activity. You know where the antisocial behaviour hotspot is. You know where it's really bad. You know where people don't report. You know, and when we talk about building resilient communities, if I'm sure you'll have heard of that phrase, the broken window syndrome. Yeah. So if there's an area where there are broken windows and graffiti and fly tipping, businesses will not invest. People will feel unsafe, and it becomes a downward spiral. And more crime, and more unsocial, more crime, more unsocial behaviour. What we want to do is go to those hotspots, deal with those environmental issues. So graffiti, fly tipping, broken windows, you know, vandalised bus shelters, nitrous oxide canisters all over the local park, which is actually, sorry, I forgot to mention, that's another one of the announcements in the ASB action plan, is the banning of nitrous oxides. You know, those little silver canisters that are everywhere, laughing gas, that young people now are using as a recreational high. So tackling that deprivation and environmental issue, but also supporting organisations like yourself to be out and proud, to be building that resilience, because we know that, you know, more active communities, as I've said to you a couple of times, are safer, and that's where we need to get to. It's one of the reasons why I'm a trustee at Neighbour Watch.
Thank you so much. And I think also, a lot of people have also said that the frustrating thing is ideally, can they have a national reporting system for antisocial behaviour? And I think what also happens is, because antisocial behaviour has many different spectrums, there's lots of different facets to it. You know, is not one size fits all on antisocial behaviour, that people get confused on where they need to report to. People are also saying that, you know, why change the laws, why change what needs to happen if what was already in place was never done properly in the first place? And it's this circle of, oh, let's add new legislation, let's do this, let's do that, but nothing ever comes out of it, and you're repeating what you did 15 years ago. People are very upset about that, and the fact that there isn't any resolution. They feel that there isn't any resolution. And I know that you know that there is a lot of success stories, there is a lot of things, and I think that we need to shout out more about those success stories so that we can then share those successes with others, and hopefully people will get inspired to do similar things to help resolve issues. But I think where the consistency is, where people are frustrated, is that they don't feel that anything's done, and it's not done quickly. I think it's more the quickly thing than anything else. What's your thoughts on that, Rebecca?
So I think there's a few things, first of all. And I know this is something that Neighbour Watch are promoting as an organisation. And it's being about, right at the very, very beginning of something around antisocial behaviour, it's about being an active bystander. If you see something and you feel confident to do it, I'm not saying that everybody will, and I'm not, I think there's something for people to assess themselves, about the actual what's happening around them, then it should be something where we feel confident enough to challenge, to say, are you okay, to somebody who's suffering antisocial behaviour, offer that support. And I know that that's something that Neighbourhood Watch are going to be promoting. It will be lots of information on the website. So I think if you haven't already, and if I'm jumping the gun here, Cheryl, a little bit, then I apologise, but I do think it's something that we should consider.
Well, we do have antisocial. We do have the 5 Ds of bystander intervention on our website, but we also, it's all part of the community safety charter as well.
There we go. See, I'm doing my best, Cheryl. I hope you know. No, so first of all, do you feel safe enough to challenge it? So if my next door neighbour had a party tonight and kept me awake till 3 o'clock in the morning, I'd go around and knock on the door. I wouldn't ring the police. I wouldn't ring the council. I wouldn't ring the housing provider. No, that's because I'm confident and I feel safe and I feel that I'm right within my rights to knock on the door and say, excuse me, do you mind turning down your bloody music? You've kept me awake and my kids are awake and I've got work tomorrow. That said, that doesn't mean you feel safe to do that all the time. And I absolutely agree that when you are a victim of antisocial behaviour and you're suffering, every minute of every day feels like a very long time. And agencies do have the ability to respond very, very quickly. If the antisocial behaviour is very serious, so there's been use or threat of violence, they can go to court today, now. If someone reported it to me now, I could create a statement and I could go to court and I could get protection in place today. So there is the possibility of that happening. So in between that, there's all sorts of different types of action that we can take. Obviously, what we're trying to do is stop the antisocial behaviour, make people feel safer, use things like, mediation, restorative justice, warnings, positive mentoring, but also, if necessary, use legal action to tackle the antisocial behaviour. My view would be, if you are not happy about what's happening, then you need to raise it. You need to complain. You need to use the ASB case review. That's what it's there for. We can only improve if we know that we're not doing it right, is what I would say. And I think the amount of pressure that's been building on the government, because now they've got the ASB action plan, they've, had me on Friday recording the most asked questions on the web. It's the most horrendous film you've ever seen. So I don't watch it, please. It's all over Twitter at the moment. But the whole purpose of that is to raise awareness of antisocial behaviour, who to report it to. I agree that there should be some sort of national standard on how to report. And in my view, it shouldn't matter who you report it to. It shouldn't be like the hot potato, where you report it to the police say, are you a social housing tenant? And you say, yes, I am. Well, you need to report it to your landlord. Or, you ring up the social landlord and you say, I'm suffering antisocial behaviour by one of your tenants. Have you rang the police? What should happen is tell me your problem and I will deal with it. And I'll find out behind, in the back room, if you like, who's the best person to deal with that problem. And that's something that we're going to be pushing more of, because I think it's, if you're a victim of antisocial behaviour, you don't want to be living that trauma and telling people the same story again and again and again, do you? So that would be one of my key points.
Lovely. And thank you so much. We're almost finished. We're going to John because he's put his hand up and he's been waiting very patiently. What I will say though, Rebecca, is if I could put together all of the questions and summarise them, if anyone from you and your team can go through them and
yes, of course,
that would be fantastic, and then I can send out the report. I'm really sorry, Vanessa, we won't be able to come to you because we are about to finish. But your questions etc. have been in the chat, so thank you so much. We will pass them on. John, if you'd like to go, and then that would be great, and then that would be our last question. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Lovely, thank you. You mentioned the increase of 20,000 police officers.
Mm-hmm.
This is 16,000 below what should be now because of the increase in the population. Those 20,000 are only replacing part of the 21,200 who were got rid of by successive governments since the mid-80s. Those police officers who were got rid of had years and years of experience. We're seeing wet behind the ear recruits in a lot of situations, admitted being mentored by other officers, but this, when you mentor somebody, you reduce the effectiveness of that other officer who has the experience. So we're seeing a reduction in the actual number of police at the moment, unless they decide to step it up and get even more. And the biggest problem is our two PCSOs, who I liaise with quite regularly, have had their area that they patrol increased 40%. They used to patrol on electric bikes. They now have to go round in a car all the time. When you saw them on the electric bikes, you stopped, had a chat, gave them a bit of information, as did other people, but they're being locked in little metal boxes, and it's very difficult to do anything with it. As for antisocial behaviour, the government talk an awful lot of good things, but if you look at the laws that the government have introduced, again, since the beginning of the 1980s, they have introduced something like 400 laws to deal with various crimes. These laws that were introduced had equivalents already on the statute book. The reason they introduced these laws, as far as I can see, is that they carried lighter sentences and could be dealt with by magistrates' courts instead of needing to go to Crown Court. So all they've done is made people think, oh, sod it, we can go out there and we can, do what the hell we like. We'll get, 2 years, possibly maximum, of community service order. That means we can sit in the van with the parole officer and we can have a fag for 4 hours and then get out and do a bit of sweeping, and that'll, do our community service. I see it all around me locally. I don't know if anybody else has similar situations. It's a shame.
Yeah, so John, obviously I don't work for the government. I work for Resolve. We're a trade body, I guess, a membership organisation. 20,000 extra police officers is better than no extra police officers, I would say. Could we do with 50,000 more? Yep. Is it a very thin line? Yes. Is it a very thin line across all agencies? Yes. Did austerity have an impact on how we respond? Yes. Was there a huge corporate knowledge drain when more experienced people in the police, local authorities and housing providers left? Yes. But what I would say to you is that I think it's really welcome, the funding that's been announced on antisocial behaviour, and the pilots and the 1 million extra youth hours and the refocus on ASB, the case review, and talking about antisocial behaviour and communities, I think is really, really valuable. And what we have to make sure we do as members of the public, so I'm not saying this as a professional, actually, as a member of the public, we need to make sure that we can work together with other people in our community, which is exactly what Neighbour Watch does. And that's why you are so valuable and why it's so important that Neighbour Watch not only is there, but that it grows and that we build that resilience in communities. And we teach young people from a very early age what pro-social behaviour is. What is a good relationship? What is a good citizen? Those kinds of things, right from the very early stage. So by the time they become adults, they understand about what it is to be working, to live in a community. So do I think there should be more police officers? Yes. Sadly, I think the 20,000 is probably what we're going to get. So we need to do the most that we can do with what we've got now, which is why Neighbour Watch is so valuable.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. And I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for coming today. What I would ask for all of you is if you can click on, where is it? If you can click on the, use your phones to scan this picture. Can you see the picture?
Yeah, we can see the picture.
If you can scan the QR code to complete our survey, it'll only take you literally a couple of minutes. It's so that we can help make them better in the future, or get some great feedback for Rebecca and Resolve to share about the conversations that we're having about ASB. And I think if there's one thing that you can take away from today is that we need to be talking about ASB more. We need to be talking about ASB, not just to our neighbours, but to our friends, to the Joe Blogs in the street. You know, we need to be those active bystanders and know who to report to and know how we can deal with it as a community. We're not saying you need to deal with it on your own. I think with the thing with Neighbourhood Watch is that we can do it together. And that's the bottom line with Neighbourhood Watch. By doing this together, we can be more effective and we can be more supportive. And we know that ASB can affect not just an individual, but can affect a whole community. And so as a community-based organisation, Neighbourhood Watch is best placed to help support those within the community, to reach out to agencies to get extra support, but as a collective rather than individual, that you feel supported, that you don't feel alone, because being a victim of antisocial behaviour can feel really alone at times. And so by being part of something bigger, something more supportive and structured and there for you, like Neighbourhood Watch, you are best placed to take advantage. Some people were asking about the Community Safety Charter in the chat. We did put the link in there to our website, which is ourwatch.org.uk, and if you / and put the word charter, it will take you straight to our charter pages. You get an email once every 2 months, so we're not bombarding you with loads of information, but this information you can share with all of your friends and families, colleagues, and we have councils signed up to it, we have MPs signed up to it, we have police forces signed up to it. So it's not just for people, individuals, we have signed up to it. It's not just Neighbourhood Watch, it's the whole spectrum. I want to say thank you all, and we are going to finish today, but thank you so much for your time, and thank you, Rebecca, for your time. It's been a pleasure as always, and we wish you the very best of luck for Antisocial Behaviour Awareness Week. And I would suggest that people follow Resolve on the website and share your posts as well. And like we said, the one thing that we need to do is to shout out about antisocial behaviour, raise the profile, and it's not just about people experiencing it, but how people can help each other to tackle it. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Nice to meet everybody.
Thank you.